Our next guest this morning is Jan Orlovsky, the coordinator for Platform for Democracy. Mr. Orlovsky, thanks very much for taking the time this morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. All right. Well, a Politico article that came out last night describes this contest as Slovakia's presidential runoff is a contest between the West and Russia. Would you characterize it this way as well?
Not at the beginning. At the beginning, the both candidates who were the leading ones, Mr. Pellegrini and Mr. Korčok, came up with the very liberal, progressive stance. And actually, Pellegrini, when he started his own party 6 years ago as a social democrat, said that he wants to be a different type of social democracy, which was presented in Slovakia by the current prime minister, Mr. Fico. However, the polls and actually the results of the first round showed that that position is not actually winning for him. Actually lost by 5% in the round one. So to the round two, the campaign has become much more fervent and I would say virulent in a sense of Mr. Pellegrini taking positions full of lies and actually distortions. So he had to adopt a position which is closer to his prime minister position, and as a chairman of the parliament, it felt the campaign was primarily not fair because he never left the position of the chairman of the party. He started 6 years ago, and he never left the position of the chairman of the parliament, which the current president, Mrs. Čaputová, did as a vice chairwoman of
That's
her
right.
party.
And why is Čaputová? Why is she not continuing? There's a lot of there's a lot of contention around that. What's really the case there?
I think the reason for that was that the part of the public really, and also part of the political spectrum, started berating her so much in a very violent and ugly way that she said, "My daughters are my pressure. My precious daughters will have their youth in a normal setting. I don't want to be exposed to the violent comments and actually." Heightened security around my daughters. I want them to have a normal youth. Therefore, she basically said, enough is enough.
All right, and I wonder how much do you think the Russians are involved in this sort of rhetoric that's happening? Or do you think that there's a lot of Russian troll farms?
Absolutely. I don't have the measures for it, but the campaign started using typical Russian propaganda material. In the yesterday, it was really superbly ugly when a picture of a Ukrainian grandmother hugging her, Ukrainian soldier grandson appeared on the social media of three ministers of the Slovak government saying, if you're for peace, go for vote. Otherwise, your sons and your grandsons will be pulled to war, which is a claim that even Pellegrini a few weeks ago said that he has no power over deciding who will go to war and where.
Wow. All right. And now I wanted to take a little bit of a step back. Fico, when he was in power last time,
Right.
there was a lot of controversy about a journalist who was killed. Fico used this he used Russian rhetoric. Really, he said that these accusations were, in his words, an attempt to overturn a democratic election instigated by philanthropist George Soros and the U.S. Embassy in Bratislava. Now, I wonder if this kind of rhetoric is continuing during this election as well.
Absolutely. Fico, it was actually yesterday was the day of the liberation of Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia, and he and the government went to lay wreaths at the memorial in Bratislava with the Belarusian and Russian ambassadors. No other EU ambassador joined the event, so you could have done that in a normal honor to the deceased soldiers without the company of two ambassadors of two countries who actually claim that we are their enemies. Fico continues to cater to Russian influence and Russian, sentiment in Slovakia. So it's basically, something what I think more than half of the country despises, and I hope that this election will show that that rhetoric doesn't have the full picture and actually full support of Slovak society.
All right. So now let's take a little a look at the future. Now, what are your predictions for today, first of all, and what kind of changes can we expect? Should Pellegrini win, or should Korczak win?
I mean, for the country, it would be better if Korczak wins in order to keep some kind of a straight arrow of political and geopolitical orientation of Slovakia. And I think the current government, which is really going through the Hungarian playbook of trying to basically intimidate civil society, governmental organization, governments towards like autocratic regime, you need a counterbalance. I mean, the presidential function is very similar to the Polish one, where the president is more or less a social figure, but does have the power of sending the legislation back to the parliament, which of course can be overturned by two-third majority of the parliament.
That's the issue here, right? Like he can't really veto. He can return it back to the parliament, but it's not a full veto power, is it?
Exactly. But that's, I think we need to have a compass in this society full of lies and disinformation. I mean, Slovak society is much more prone to disinformation than the Polish or Hungarian or the Czech one. So the Slovaks are much more tending to believe into disinformation casted by the Russian influence. Therefore, you need someone who is clearly Western-oriented politician with a track record that proves it.
That's right. So hopefully we'll see Korczak in later this evening. We'll see him become president.
It's very close, but we will see. I mean, the polls opened just 2 hours ago, and it will be open until pretty much 11 p.m. Or 10 p.m. So I think half of Slovakia will not sleep until 2-3 a.m.
Right. Well, us too. We're going to be watching. We're going to be watching the polls, and we're going to be watching the results as they come in.
Thank you.
Sir, thanks very much for taking the time this morning. Pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. You have a good morning.